My name is Diana Waterman, and I am the lead keeper of the ambassadors and the commissary here at Roger Williams Park Zoo.
And my name is Emily, and I am the primary zookeeper of the ambassador animal department here at Roger Williams Park Zoo.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so this is a particularly special episode, and honestly, it wasn't the next in the queue, but I really wanted to share it with you as soon as possible. And honestly, you know, I'm finishing this up and editing this on my birthday, and it's my birthday. I get to do what I want to do. It's my birthday, right? And so my birthday gift for all of you is that I'm sharing this interview with Diana and Emily from Roger Williams Park Zoo early because, y'all, this one is so much fun. Diana and Emily are two keepers and trainers who work with the ambassador animals at Roger Williams Park Zoo, as well as in the commissary, though honestly, we don't even touch that part of their jobs. Maybe we need a part 2 episode. And they're just an incredible team. The two of them have kind of come up in the industry together, and they started at Southwick Zoo together with our good friend Dani Poirier-Larson, and we talk about her and about their experience there. And so it just seemed like a great time to share this, especially because I spent my birthday with Dani Poirier-Larson, getting both lunch and dinner, and in between those hangs, going to Roger Williams Park Zoo and spending some time there. And so I figured this is just the perfect episode to drop at this time. So we're going to do it. But before we get to that, I do want to remind y'all to make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of these Tuesday interview episodes or any of my Friday Zoo News episodes. Also, make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine. And don't forget that you can go to patreon.com/Rossifari to support the podcast. You can sign up for as little as $3 a month. And even if you just go there and sign up for a free membership, you can also participate in our monthly exclusive sticker program, which is awesome and adorable. And the first 3 are just fantastic. So, again, that's patreon.com/Rossifari. Also, signing up is a great way to give me a little late birthday gift. I really like my birthday, y'all, but you don't care. So let's get to it. Without further ado, here is my interview with Diana and Emily from Roger Williams Park Zoo. Oh, and by the way, y'all, they let us have some fun with this one, and we were allowed to leave those moments in. So this one's extra special. Enjoy. Awesome. And so that immediately leads to a question, which is, so you are the lead keeper and you are the primary keeper. And what is the distinction? What is the difference? How does that work?
Sure. I can start off with lead keeper. So we have a handful of lead keepers here at the zoo that are each overseeing and leading, supervising, whatever you want to call it, a few different departments around the zoo. So myself, my assigned areas are ambassadors and commissary. So I am kind of setting the pace every single day, keeping track of some of our major projects going on. I'm a little bit of a liaison between us and management. If we need to schedule extra help for a big project, if there are massive things going on, I'm hopefully going to be communicating that between our managers and our keepers. And do you feel like there's anything else that I really do that sets me apart so wildly?
I don't think so. A lot of what I do, you do too. So,
and I guess I think it's worth saying we also, as lead keepers, we still are a zookeeper day in and day out. So anything that keepers in the ambassadors or the commissary do, I'm also doing too. Husbandry wise, I'm getting my hands just as dirty as anybody. And hopefully as a lead keeper, I try to provide mentorship when I can, be someone to bounce ideas off. I feel like set the pace is something that I said.
Yeah.
And like set the pace and set the tone of the area. And
and kind of like expectations without
I'd say
the pressure. Yeah. I would
That's
say
cool.
that's pretty much what you do.
What's your day like?
My day is usually just basic zookeeper job, husbandry, any medical stuff. I'm kind of like Diana's second. I mean, of course I am. I'm the primary. But if she's not there, people can come to me with things. But she is still my direct supervisor. So anything that's going on in the area, I'm going to let her know first. But if she's not there, the vets will probably contact me because I'm most likely going to be in the area. I'm there 5 days a week. So I'm kind of the contact for if she's not available.
Cool. I do find it kind of amusing that your title is primary, but you're the second. It's like the best man at a wedding, right?
I know.
It's weird phrasing.
The title is, I don't know. But I try to keep track of things that Diana might not like have time for because she's the lead of 2 areas. So like any strip cleaning of any tanks, I try to keep the rest of the team on track with that. Weights, stuff like that. Just take a little bit off of her plate since she's got a lot to take care of.
And you do a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, y'all are so cute. Adorable. So that is actually something that I think is really interesting because this is something I do a lot in my career. I am a professional touring musician and stuff, and I often music direct and hire my friends, and then they hire me. And there's this weird balance of like sometimes I'm in charge and sometimes they're in charge, but we're also like besties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And clearly we've been hanging out for a while now, and you two get along pretty darn well.
Yes.
So how does that work for y'all, having that imbalance, but also clearly being so in sync?
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad that reads so well.
Yeah.
I like taking on a leadership role at the zoo. I've tried to listen to a bunch of management podcasts to try to be, the best leader that I can be. And some people believe that you can't be friends with the people that you also manage. And it's really a priority to me to try to be both. Everybody that I work with are people that I adore in the zoo and outside of the zoo. And so sometimes, like if we have different philosophies or something, like we do have to put on like a lead keeper, primary keeper hats and just really talk shop. But I
think because we're friends too, though, like we're able to have really open conversations. Like we know where the other one is coming from, which is obviously privilege not everybody has, but I think that works really good for us.
Yeah. I think that as working in an ambassador department, it's so much more people focused than a lot of zookeeping roles are, that we're not just interacting with our animals and our fellow keepers. We have educators, docents, the public. We're way more involved in all of that. So I feel like the human side of zookeeping is really emphasized in an ambassador department.
Yeah.
That you have to have good relationships on all fronts.
Yeah.
So I feel like it makes it easier to be friends with your coworkers because those relationships, we're fostering those in all different areas. And I think it makes us really successful.
Yeah, I think so too. And I started as an intern under Diana, so I kind of already had that respect for her in a leader type position. So I think it's just kind of what we've always known. So now I'm just lucky to have her as a friend, I guess.
No, that is awesome. And that is something that I found in the same thing when you're touring with people and you love them and it's great. When you get good people, you can be friends and a supervisor.
Yeah.
When you get not good people, it becomes very challenging. And
that can be tough.
It's a laughy thing we can laugh about. But I mean, honestly, I can't tell you how many times I have hired somebody who is the second or third best musician for a job that I want, but is the best person for it. And I know they're still going to do the job well. Like, obviously, that's the base level. But I don't need you to be the best and a pain in my butt. I want to be able to hang out and get along. And like you said, even when you disagree on something, if you disagree from a good place, then that just fosters good conversation. I almost said conservation.
I think it fosters both. I think you nailed that.
No, that's very real. I love the book Leaders Eat Last. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it.
Oh, I haven't read that, but that does sound good. Yeah.
yeah, we won't get too deep into leadership right now, but yeah. So let's go backwards for a minute, and I want to talk about what brought y'all to where you are now, especially knowing that you have a connection to the podcast. So go ahead and tell me your stories.
Sure. So as far as our connection to the podcast, we have a handful of friends who have spent some time on the podcast.
Yep.
We were both brushing up before we came on today. But so career-wise, do you want me to go into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I have always been involved in the equine world. Horses were a huge part of my life as a child, going into young adulthood. Those were like my first paid animal roles. But when I went to college, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And I had a big, early life crisis about that because I was a really good student when I was a kid. But I thought to myself, even as a great student, if my teacher was running late, if I had a substitute, I was so thrilled. If my teacher wasn't there on time, I thought, oh, maybe she's sick today. We'll watch a movie. And I said, I don't think I can do a career where the kids are going to be thrilled for me to not be there sometimes. So it was actually...
I'm sorry, pause. That's kind of amazing. Like,
don't let any teachers
of all
listen to
the
this.
reasons.
I know.
No, I mean, that's amazing, though.
And so I had a little bit of a crisis of this is what I thought I wanted to do, but I don't know if I'll feel appreciated enough.
Yeah.
So I just started looking back into things that made me happy. Animals were always a big, to my core part of my life. And it was actually visiting Roger Williams Park Zoo. I was looking at, we used to have an UDAD exhibit, and I watched a keeper performing husbandry in that habitat, swapping out dishes, scrubbing some water bowls, and I thought, I do that with horses. People do that as a full-time career with exotics. Maybe that's something that I'd really like to do.
Just another one of these basic zookeeper stories of being inspired by an UDAD, of course.
So lame.
Every day, it's like, oh yeah, it was an UDAD for me. Yeah, me too.
Just one of many, right?
Oh my God.
But so that really changed my path. And so I had a lot of amazing internships during my undergrad. And then my first paid zookeeping role was at Southwick Zoo. I spent a lot of time there with our fabulous mutual friend, Dani, one of the best to ever do it.
So true.
And so I spent a lot of time there in the ambassador department. It was a fabulous place to be introduced to a whole bunch of different species, wonderful human mentors, as well as animal mentors that really taught me about being great at training and husbandry and efficient. And, so I spent a lot of time there. And then Roger Williams is close by. It was it was a zoo that I was always interested in. And I was early in my career. I've been a zookeeper for 8 years. And so I spent 5 of them at Southwick's. And I felt like I was kind of at a turning point of, do I want to try something different and then maybe come back and decide that this is my home base and my forever zoo? I felt like it was a good time to maybe just try and take a risk. So I applied for a keeping position here. And very soon after I started, a lead keeper position became open that I was qualified for. So it was intimidating being I think at the time I was the newest person on staff.
Oh, wow. Applying
for such a large role. But I got it. And so I very quickly stepped into a leadership role here, and I love it. So they paired right away, just based on my background, they paired ambassadors and commissary together. They said, you've got plenty of food prep experience, and ambassadors have always kind of been where my heart has been. So they paired those up, and that's what I've been rolling with ever since.
That's awesome. And what is your story, Emily?
I did not want to be a teacher, first of all. No, I always loved animals growing up, the classic. But in high school, I actually went to a tech school, and my shop was culinary. So I did that for 4 years, and I really, really liked it. But my brother is a chef, and he was saying, if my heart's not in it fully, because I was teetering animal route, culinary route. And so I obviously went the animal route, but I never really thought about a zookeeper career. It just, like Diana, it just never really crossed my mind. I wanted to work with abused animals in a shelter setting, and I needed a internship to graduate. And my professor, shout out Dr. Augusto, she was like, have you ever heard of Southwick's? And I was like, I've been going there my whole life. It's 10 minutes from my parents. She was like, we've had people do it. And I was like, okay, let me check it out. And yeah, I basically just didn't stop after that. I was an intern under Diana back in 2018, stayed there for a few years. And I too was like, you know what, I'm gonna put myself out there, go to a big zoo. Because Southwick's, it's fairly big, but it's still like small town feel for me because I grew up next town over. So I really put myself out there. I applied to the Bronx and I got it. So I moved to New York for a year and I decided that was too much for me. The commute was insane, but I got insane animal experience that I'm just so grateful for. But Diana was here at Roger Williams. She knew I was kind of thinking about maybe leaving, and I ended up here and again, been here ever since in the ambassador collection. So it's very similar to what we did at Southwick. So it kind of lucked out with experience and everything. And I got the culinary background. So I'm a regular in the commissary too.
Nice. That's very cool.
Yeah. And that's how we got here.
Nice. So let's talk about some of the ambassador collection.
Okay.
And obviously there are some very, very tiny legs running around right now. And we need to start with them. So go ahead and share about the new 9 Bandits.
Yes. So our 16 teeniest, tiniest legs. We have 4 9-banded armadillo pups who have recently been named.
Yes.
We decided to go with shell-themed names in honor of their father, Sheldon. So our tiny girls are Puka, Olive, Moon, and Juno. All different shells. Look them up if you have to.
That's adorable. I was like, I've never seen a shelled olive before. I'll trust that that is
really
also a
pretty
type of shell.
shell. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
We did. We got confirmation.
Yeah, pictures, everything.
But they have been such a joy for us to work with. Yeah. So we have 9-banded armadillos in our collection. 9-banded armadillos, whenever they give birth, it is always 2 identical quadruplets.
That's crazy.
So so we knew that we were going to have 4, but it wasn't until they were born that we were going to know males or females. So we did end up with 4 females. And they have really interesting gestation. And if you want me to dive into that a little bit. Don't mind if I do. So they have a really wide range. So we do see them in the more southern parts of North America, all the way down into South America. And depending on which hemisphere they're in, just to get ideal temperatures for when they're going to be rearing their young, they have different breeding cycles depending on if they're northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. So they're actually a mammal that can do delayed implantation of fertilized eggs. So they might be breeding, and then 4 months later is when you first start to see pregnancy. And then so it's a single fertilized egg that then splits into 4, which is how we have identical quadruplets every single time.
That's fascinating.
They're really cool. Just Sinarthrans and armadillos in general. They're a passion of both of ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
But So I've been the lead here for 3 years, and we never had armadillo pups in that time. We actually thought that the parents were perhaps too old. And so we monthly take weights, and we were seeing a massive weight increase on mom. And what was kind of funny, and I don't know if it's TMI for your podcast, but there had actually been a penis injury on the father armadillo that was noted at one point in our vet records.
Very close in proximity to the weight gain.
In close proximity to the weight gain, but we had assumed that mom and dad were perhaps both too old.
Right.
But just looking in our record system at the weight gain, and we had adjusted her diet a little bit. Behavior was totally normal. We shouldn't really be seeing this amount of weight gain.
No, especially for the time of year it was. We were like, this is weird. This makes no sense.
Yeah. So I looked back historically and I saw, the last time she was this heavy was over 3 years ago when she was pregnant. We said, is there a possibility? So she's an animal that we've done voluntary ultrasounds on in the past. We do them probably once a year just to check if by chance she is pregnant. We hadn't done one in a while because we thought that maybe the timing just wasn't in our favor. But we got an ultrasound on our girl, and lo and behold.
Yeah, first we saw fluid, and it was 99% chance that it was pregnancy, and it sure was. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do armadillos always injure their penises while they're mating, or is that just a fluke? Like, seriously asking,
I feel pretty confident that it's a fluke.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to chime in and say that
please.
no, that's every single time.
Yeah.
But I believe it was a fluke.
Yeah.
Corey, I
think so.
promise I will not call this episode Fluke Penis Injury, even though I really want to. But I promise you I will not do that. You're welcome.
That's so funny.
But we really, because we thought, we didn't think that this was going to happen.
We thought there was
us.
no way.
Right.
Sheldon is he's the oldest in AZA facilities, in ZIMS actually. And
Wow.
we thought there was just no way. He's about 18 years old, and he said, no way. I got one more in me.
I got one more. I got one more litter of pups.
Yeah, he wanted us to have this experience. He's so thoughtful.
He's like these old rock stars like Mick Jagger that are still like kicking out in their 70s. And you're like, what?
A true rock star. Yeah.
Yes, that's him.
But so it was incredible. So once we confirmed pregnancy, we began doing ultrasounds weekly. Those always happened on Fridays, which is the day that I'm not there, but Em's there.
Yep.
You want to talk about ultrasounding with her?
It was so cool to see the progression, because you could see them, just the increase in fluid at first, and then like the tiny, tiny littlest things. And it got to a point where they were so big that you couldn't see all 4 of them just on the screen. We had to move around and everything, but seeing the heartbeats, and you could see all their bands and their spines and everything. It was so cool to see them just grow inside of her. It was just beautiful to see.
So their bands are there, like, from that.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. I don't know why I find that shocking, but I do.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Look like little armadillos when they're
Right.
first born. They're just
Wow.
really pink.
Okay.
And they're soft, just to not injure mom on the way out.
Okay.
And they harden up over time. Ours are still a little pink in spots, but you can see everything. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
That was going to be my next question, was like, if they have shells, how does that work?
Yeah.
But so they're soft shells.
But they're softer, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So she's got 4 of them in there, so she needs some comfort.
Goodness.
It was funny too. You could see her belly growing and everything. She'd be eating, and it would just hang there like a real pregnant belly. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very special.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And so what is life like with the little ones right now?
Exciting every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're really hoping to compile a lot of data on these babies to be able to help other facilities to have really successful births and rearing.
Yeah. Especially with like weaning and everything. There's not too much, there's not a lot of like data on it, but with success with weaning, some facilities are having trouble, and we've done it successfully a few times. So I think we're going to compile some information.
I forget
for
if we
everybody.
mentioned this, but so this is Patsy's 3rd litter.
Okay.
So these are babies 9 through 12. So she's an old pro. And so we're hoping that we can monitor her success in the baby's development and hopefully put together like a little bit of a pseudo handbook. We would love to maybe present it somewhere, but to just help other facilities on their way. So we are currently weighing the babies every other day.
Wow.
Our facility standard is that juveniles only need to get weighed once a week just to track their production. Their growth and development. But we're trying to do every other day just so that we can have really good data for other facilities to know if they're experiencing a weight drop at all and if there's any necessary intervention.
And Mom Patsy handles it so well. So if she told us no baby weights today, we wouldn't. But she's really, really good mom.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
she doesn't worry about us, luckily.
It was very cool getting to see some nursing down there. That was
Yeah.
that was really special.
Yeah,
That was really beautiful.
Yeah, so for anyone who has never had the privilege of seeing a 9-banded armadillo nursing pups, so Patsy lays down on her side so that all 4 babies have access to nipples for nursing. And even just, I think, information like that. I was thinking about if other facilities are maybe having trouble with pups coming out of the weaning phase or nursing, that it might be really important information for someone to know that if they can train a lay down behavior in their 9-banded female armadillo, that perhaps they'll be able to set her up for more success nursing as a first-time mom, and just little observations like that.
Yeah, definitely.
But so we, so you had asked about our routine with the little ones. So we start every day with just our morning diet, breakfast and med prep. Mom is just on some routine medications, so we always see her usually by about 8:30. It's always a 2-keeper job. 1 keeper is focusing on Mom's breakfast, meds. She actually gets eye drops every single day just for some chronic dry eye. Very relatable. And while the other keeper takes a look at pups, every day we're looking that eyes are clear and open and looking healthy. We were checking umbilical sites daily as those were healing. And just like a general once over of everybody, make sure that all looks well. And
it's a good opportunity to see how they move around too, because now they're venturing out a little bit more and burrowing like crazy. But it's good to see them moving and acting like normal little armadillos. I think it's good.
No, that's really cool. And one thing that I'm noticing is that you talk a lot about the relationship that you have with Mom and are already building with the pups. And to me, that means that you all probably have a pretty deep passion for training, something that we like to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah, you can say that.
So talk to me about your philosophy with the training and, ambassador animals in general.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that makes me so passionate about ambassadors is how unique their role is at the zoo. It's not guests approaching them and seeing them from a distance. It's so often our ambassadors coming to you and creating a really unbelievable, sometimes once in a lifetime experience. What I say a lot about ambassadors is that among our collection, we should have ambassadors who might be considered ordinary animals that can do extraordinary things and extraordinary animals that can do ordinary things. So if I'm going to have a chicken that goes on a program, that chicken's going to know how to target, how to fly from A to B, jump around, climb back in their crate, do a bunch of interesting stuff. Whereas if I have maybe our prehensile-tailed porcupine, sometimes him just enjoying going in his crate, traveling and coming out and chomping on some sweet potato in front of guests, sometimes that's enough to make a really impactful experience. So we believe that our ambassadors on every single level of the spectrum deserve some sort of training to be prepared for their jobs. So for some of our smaller animals, that's just routine acclimation, being routinely picked up, placed in your crate in a very, I keep saying routine, but in a very routine fashion that this is how things go. This is what your job looks like. Whenever you're taken somewhere, you're with someone who knows how to read your body language. You'll always be somewhere safe. And if you show us any signs that you are no longer enjoying being here, that we're going to read that, respect that, and take you right home. Up to even more advanced behaviors. We're really lucky to work with some free-flighted and some partially flighted birds, giving them the opportunity to show those natural behaviors. And just so much of our philosophy revolves around our animals have unique jobs and they deserve all the best tools possible to be able to perform that job. We can't send them on stage with no lines. They deserve to have a really good idea of what's going to be asked of them, what their yeses are in the new space, what the no's might be in the new space, and just letting them be their best selves with their really unique job.
It's cool. I like it. I like it. And I heard a rumor, and by that I mean you told me this before we started, that you're actually working with some skunks on a particularly cool behavior right now. So y'all want to share about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's a behavior that I've kind of taken the lead on. So I'll share a bit about that. So we have 2 juvenile skunks in the ambassador department. They are both going on 8 months old.
8 or 9, yeah.
8 or 9 months old. Em's really good at numbers. She remembers all of our animals' birthdays and ages to a T.
I try.
She also made sure that you celebrated her birthday.
The ambassador department is decked out right now.
Yes, it is.
So we've been really fortunate to work with these skunks since a really young age. They were born at Nashville Zoo. They've been with us for a good number of months now. And so just building a lot of foundational behaviors for them, basic things they should know how to target, how to shift, how to crate, classic stuff to get them through their day, as any animal should. But right now we're working on a really interesting behavior that I'm calling their crate request behavior. So on program, rather than just having a crate sitting in their space, we want to give them the opportunity to have a lot more choice and control over the behavior of entering your crate and going home. So we're training a crate request behavior. They have a little station that has a cute little image of a crate and says, "Crate, please," on it. And the skunks are being trained to dig at that crate station, and then their crate will appear, and now it's the opportunity to go home. So at any point in their program, whether they are feeling, really, they could be feeling a whole bunch of different things. It doesn't have to be nervous, anxious, fearful. It could be bored. It could be overstimulated. It could be, I'm really hungry, so I want to go home and probably interact with my enrichment. They could be feeling a number of things, but just to add so much control and assent to the whole program experience, rather than just a crate sitting there in their space that they may or may not wander into, we're going to have a very distinct signaling behavior of this is exactly what I would like. I know that this means I'm going to go home. I'm consciously choosing to make that decision. And we're hoping that through that, we're going to see just an enormous amount of bravery on programs. Knowing that they have the ability to say no and say, I'd like to go home now, is just going to, we think, tenfold improve their bravery on programs. So we're really close to having that behavior checked off our list. And we're really excited to start showing it off to the public.
Yeah, that is really cool and really special. Thanks. I like that. Yeah, that's very cool. Now, going back to the animals in the department for a second, because we have lots, we need to talk about at least a few more. But, I always say that I've been very lucky I meet all these different animals all around the country. And I've had some really amazing experiences. A lot of animals that don't like dudes like me for some reason. I hear that a lot. And I've had cool little fun experiences with all these amazing animals. But y'all have a bird that just does not, just broke my little brain and heart and was just like, no, sir, not you. So let's talk about Zazu.
Let's.
Do you want to dive in on Zazu?
On him as just an individual or just, so Zazu, his backstory is pretty interesting.
Let's start with what he is. And then go to that.
Of course. Yes. Nobody knows yet. He's a Von der Decken's hornbill. So he's a tiny little bird, but he has a very large personality and he lets us know. So he actually was someone's pet, essentially. They owned a pet store. So he wasn't being sold to anybody, but he lived there all the time at this pet store. And once it closed, he was living in someone's basement. And luckily, I hope they recognized that this was not appropriate. I don't know the full story, but we acquired him as an ambassador. So it's interesting that he does not particularly enjoy beards and male presenting individuals, but we are working slowly but surely on that. We've done some pretend, like kind of mock programs with him, and we've had just keepers be the guinea pigs, but we've worn different shirts and we've had males in that audience just to see how he reacts. We've only done that a few times and he's done really well. We do have one of our ambassador animal specialists right now is a male and usually has facial hair.
I would
Sean
say
does.
so. Yeah.
And so that's good for him to be exposed to that almost daily. But yeah, Zazu lets us know when but that's good because he has that choice and control over when he wants to interact with someone and when he doesn't want to interact with someone. So when he is giving us those behaviors, that's letting us know that he is not pleased with maybe who is looking at him or in the room. We can remove that person once appropriate. You don't want to do it when he is banging his little beak against the mesh. You want to wait till he pauses so you're not reinforcing that behavior. Right. But he's gotten a lot better. He has grown a lot as an individual, as an ambassador as well.
We definitely feel like it's a behavior that we see exclusively in holding. Mm-hmm. If we were to,
that's a good point.
We have different presentation spaces around the zoo, and he is really a perfect gentleman in those spaces. Yeah. We think it's a lot of talk, I think, because it's his space.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes it's like, when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to get a tattoo while I lived under my father's house, but now I have one.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, the rules are different at home versus out and about.
Seriously.
It's funny because you talk about just trying to figure out what's going through animals' brains. Mm-hmm. And Dani at Southwoods has had me work with some of their birds that are more concerned about male presenting individuals. And I have mostly had success. And once she was like, duck. And I was like, okay, these things happen. But I only recently grew my beard out. So I've had facial hair basically my entire adult life, but like a goatee kind of thing.
Yep.
And I just recently grew this out. And I do now wonder if maybe that will make me scarier to some of those animals. Maybe I need to trim back because it has been like a truly recurring theme in the last 5 years. Literally dozens of animals that the keepers are like, you can try, but does not do well with men, and then does well with me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, ooh, I wonder if this is going to make, like, if that's too much.
Yeah.
I'm too manly now.
You crossed a line.
No one has ever said that. But I just, that's actually fascinating to think about. And it might not be. It might just be, Zazu might have hated me no matter what. But
I think I would say suspicious of new people
Yes, definitely
entering his
suspicious.
space. But it's something that I don't ever want to put a label on him.
no,
Yeah.
right.
Of beards or a no.
Right.
I think it's been interesting. So some of our, there's one coworker that I'm thinking of in particular who does have a beard, who at one point, I think Zazu was doing a bit of free flight and ambassadors. This person entered in and Zazu made a beeline to this keeper with a beard. And this keeper very calmly put their hand up in the air. And rather than the bird flying at his face or hitting his head, the bird landed on his hand. And those two now have a perfectly fine relationship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's, maybe some history of him with more masculine presenting people.
Yeah.
But there's always room for growth, right?
Always.
No, yeah.
None of us, we shouldn't judge a book by his cover. Zazu shouldn't judge a book by his cover. So we're trying to expose him to a little bit more. But yeah, he's got some attitude and holding.
He definitely has an attitude.
I mean, he let us know he was there and that I should not be. Yes.
He did pretty good. He did all right.
It felt like he was communicating. It didn't feel like
Yeah.
it didn't feel like he was like freaking out or anything. He was communicating that it was probably time to go to the interview and see some other animals.
Yeah, he's just keeping us on track for our
just schedule.
timetable.
Yeah,
he's good
right.
at that, yeah.
So thoughtful.
And while we're talking about birds, let's talk about the two that were outside there that we got to go visit.
Yeah.
'Cause they're just stunning.
Thank you. We have two native raptor species. So we have a red-tailed hawk named Reba, and we have a turkey vulture named Cathartes. We adore them both. They're wonderful members of our ambassador collection.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. I guess I'll start with Reba, then you want to touch on Cathartes.
Okay.
So Reba has a partial wing amputation. She was rehabilitated and rescued through Knoxville, Tennessee, their zoo. She was actually injured by being shot by a farmer who was defending their flock of chickens. Very illegal to do.
Yeah, let's not do that.
We don't know a massive amount about her story, but we do know that it was a bullet that caused her partial amputation. We've put a lot of emphasis in her husbandry, her training, and her enrichment in maintaining strength and all the muscles and limbs that she does still have. And we feel like we've seen really good progress from that. Being partially flighted, we can get maybe like a 12-foot flight out of her at peak motivation. And we feel like trying to utilize all like the skills and mobility that she does have and build off those has created a bird that's much more resilient. And she's always been really confident.
Yeah.
She's
really comfortable with people as well, given her history, but she's very comfortable with people.
When we talk about her, especially, she's like the first raptor that we're going to introduce any of our interns to. We really do say she's much more of a chicken than a hawk.
She really is.
She's a delight.
She is.
If she ever needs to be restrained for like a vet procedure, you do pick her up like a chicken. Just two hands on the side. Yeah. If an intern's ever observing us, we say, do not ever do this. Do not take this as what to do with raptors in general.
Right, yeah.
She is a exception.
She's a unique case, but she's just a delight. Yeah. She's so calm. She's when our educators are first learning about working a bird on a glove, she's the first one that they're working with. Like, I think she teaches us as much as we teach her. Yeah. But yeah, it's been great to see her grow, even as an older girl, to like build her enrichment repertoire, the kinds of behaviors that she's doing. She was mostly acclimated to, she would be on a glove, she would utilize jesses, she'd be placed in a crate. We've added like targeting and A's to B's as parts of her behavioral repertoire. And we just feel like she's, even in her older age, old dog, new tricks, really blossomed from that.
That's really cool. And like, how does she fly with a partial wing?
She very much looks like she's utilizing both wings. Okay. So it's kind of, if you think about our arm, she kind of lost her wing like at the elbow. So she does still have like a half wing and then one full wing. She beats them a lot faster than you would typically see a red-tailed hawk using their wings. They do a bit more gliding. Reba does not do much gliding. She's a flap, flap, flap kind of flying girl. But yeah, we perch her habitat in a way that gives her the option to perform longer flights, but also if she is particularly exhausted, maybe wet from the rain, she lives outside year round, that she doesn't ever have to fly to get anywhere. She could just hop her way all around, but if she wants to fly, she has that opportunity.
And she definitely built up her momentum with a jump initially to the flight, and then her little wings go. It's really cute.
That is so adorable.
Yeah,
and it's just so cool how just adapted to the situation.
Yeah.
Like, what ifs?
Yeah, resilience, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think because when her injury happened, she was fairly young.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that kind of, she lucked out with that. I wish she didn't have the injury, but because she had to adapt at such a young age, now in her old age, it's like so normal for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then tell me about the other bird with the crazy name. And how did this name become a thing?
So Cathartes is part of his scientific name.
Mm-hmm.
Cathartes Aurora, something.
We'll edit that in.
We'll edit that in.
You can say it perfectly and we'll edit it in.
Okay, perfect. We'll get to that. Anyways, so he has a different beginning of life than Reba. So he was actually hand-reared in a facility in Virginia Aquarium, I believe is where he came from. And so he loves people. I don't think he was a full ambassador there, but he was doing ambassador-like things. And so we are very lucky that he has this relationship with people. He does enjoy people a little bit too much sometimes. He is in his breeding time right now. So we're using that to our advantage to get him to be encouraged to do certain things, but we do have to watch these behaviors with him because he gets a little carried away. But when we first got him, he was kind of a challenge because he is fully flighted and he's absolutely massive compared to Zazu the hornbill. So it was a good opportunity for training in a free flighted situation. But we quickly learned that he enjoys play a lot. So reinforcers for him, we usually do a little bit of pinkies. He likes liver, but playing with him is super, super reinforcing for him. So we use that to build our relationship with him. And we just go out there. One day we were out there for 30 minutes playing a xylophone with him and he's playing back. We're throwing things back and forth. He's a delight, but, he's definitely a bit of a challenge for us, but I like it. We've done some cool things with him.
Yeah, we've learned a lot from him.
Yeah, a lot of A to Bs with him, glove to glove. Diana worked on a really cool voluntary ointment application where he presents his foot and we're able to put ointment on him just as a preventative for bumblefoot. So we regularly change his perching to help with his feet health, but we've done that. He's a really cool individual. We're lucky to have him.
Yeah, he's gorgeous, too.
He is.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Nice.
His beak is cute, actually. I want to talk about that. Amy Fennell, shout out, Amy Fennell. She
still
noticed.
alive.
Yeah, he's still alive. Very important. Still alive, doing wonderful things. When she first met him, she noticed that his beak has a little patch of black on it. So she assumed that he was juvenile still, because typically turkey vultures, when they're fully grown, their beak is completely white. But he is just a special individual and has a little patch of black on his beak. And even though he's 18 years old, he's young at heart, we'll say.
I love that. That's his little tattoo.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
Nice. Very cool. Are there any other animals or training things that you wanted to hit on?
I would love for Emily to talk about voluntary ultrasounds with our 6-banded armadillos. Okay. So we have 9 bandeds and 6 bandeds.
Yes.
We'd love to get even more. We would love to get 3s, the whole 3, 6, 9 trio.
Big armadillo people over here.
We're big armadillo folks.
Yeah.
Screaming Harry, please.
Yes,
please.
they're so cute.
Yeah, send one my way.
Yeah,
Yes.
any and all. The ambassador department will become the armadillo department. That's a dream. But yeah, so Josephine, our female 6-banded armadillo, she came from, San Francisco?
No.
What is it?
Crap. Give me a sec.
Okay, let me start over.
It's Northern
I'm just going to say
California.
California. I'm just going to say California.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
All right.
Okay, so Josephine, our female 6-banded armadillo, she came from a zoo in California.
Which one? Sorry, I had you.
Oh my God! Don't do that to me! My heart rate. No, I'm just kidding. Keep that that in. Which one is it? I think it's San Francisco. No, it's not San Francisco. It's Santa Monica?
Nope.
No, Santa Barbara. No,
We have a finger. We're getting there.
It's It's gotta
Drum
be.
roll, please. Oh God.
Fresno Chaffee Zoo.
Okay, Fresno Chaffee.
Really?
Is it?
Josephine?
There's no way.
I don't think so.
Fresno, then to St. Louis, then to Sacramento.
Sacramento. That's his.
That was it.
Perfect. Okay.
Fresno.
Birth in Fresno.
Birth in
Got
Fresno.
it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, what am I doing?
You're introducing Josephine
Okay.
from Sacramento.
Okay, perfect. So our female six-banded armadillo, Josephine, she came to us from Sacramento Zoo. She came with a pretty good variety of behaviors. She could station, she could spin around, she could stand on her little legs. She also could play the keyboard. So I have heard, yes, she's very talented. But she came on a breeding recommendation with our previous six-banded armadillo, Harvey. Shout out to Harvey. We unfortunately lost him, but we got Beauregard from Memphis. So he came on a breeding recommendation. So to kind of prepare for potential babies, we decided to do a voluntary ultrasound behavior. So we started from scratch. I built her this little stand, and she puts her back feet on this little piece of turf, her front feet on this little bar. And I originally started targeting her up there just to get her familiar with the positioning and everything. Luckily, Josephine is extremely food motivated, so I'm able to use her diet. We've kind of created a recipe of our own for training. It's just soaked insectivore, mashed into a patty, frozen, and then cut into little cubes.
Yum.
And so luckily we don't have to use extra treats and fatten her up anymore, but she works for her diet. So we started with targeting up there and just got her comfortable with the position. She actually takes her reinforcers from a cup. So the mechanics of it was a work in progress for me. That was really challenging to get the target and then the cup and everything. So, but she is super, I don't know, what's the word?
I mean, she's a rock star.
She's just a rock star.
She's really smart.
Yeah,
she's
learns
really training
so
motivated.
fast. Yeah, she just is a very fast learner. And so we started I lost the target, and then I would just wait for her to get up into the position, reinforce for that. And Kaz actually helped me along with this, which Kaz is now at Brookfield Zoo on a previous episode. But we started working on duration. So once we started working on duration, even if it was just 2 seconds of her staying in that position, we got that down, and then we started reaching. So we didn't touch yet because Josephine is not really interested in being touched, which is okay. But in order to get an ultrasound image, we need to put the probe on. So we started with just our arm reaching under her belly just to get that in her head that, something might be moving under me. And once we did that, we started using something to emulate a probe. We just use a target stick. We put that under. And then once she was comfortable with that movement, we were able to start with touch. So very brief touches. And we actually found that she wasn't really as aversive to it as we thought. She started pushing her stomach into the target, which was really good for us because then we didn't have to put as much pressure on it with the actual ultrasound.
Right.
And once we got that, we eventually had the vets help us out, and they came with the ultrasound machine, and we were able to get a pretty clear picture. But we've taken a back seat from it a little bit just because she is in this new space. And so we don't want to overwhelm her with too much training at once. So some days we just work on duration in the positioning. Some days we work on touch. And during all of this, she always has the option to go on her station. So degrees of freedom are super important with our animals. I don't want to give her only the choice of doing this ultrasound behavior if she wants to train. So right next to it, I have her little station. And if she goes on it, even if I don't ask her for that, I give her a reward because she's doing something. She knows this will earn her a reinforcer, and then she can kind of collect herself and come back to the other option if she wants to. But she kind of drives the training sessions, which I think just stimulates her little brain even more. So yeah, she's super impressive. She's very, very good at it.
Yeah, she's a delight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really cool. It's a two-person behavior.
Yeah, sorry, I should have said that, yeah.
No. I think you explained it perfectly. So M is the one cueing Josephine, in charge of reinforcers. Myself and other ambassador keepers are usually the second person using the fake ultrasound probe. We'll even use like ultrasound jelly just to practice all these different sensations.
Yeah.
And it's been really fascinating and such a great learning experience for all of us as far as having a two-person. You're communicating with her. She's communicating with you. I'm communicating with you.
Yeah.
I'm letting Emily know, she pushed her belly into the probe today. Like, that's a jackpot, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's been such a learning experience for all of us.
Especially with the vets, too, because they're obviously focusing on the medical aspect of it, getting the image, where we're focusing on what Josephine is telling us. So we have to be ready to say she's going to drop because she gets tired sometimes, or if she just doesn't want to be touched, she's going to drop down. Yeah. And we kind of have to be ready to read that and let them know, pull your arm away just so it's not as upsetting to her if their hand is still there. So we're working on having the cup not be right in front of her face. Every once in a while, we go back to basics just to clean it up a little bit, but present the cup with the reinforcer, take it away. She waits a couple minutes while maybe Diana says reach. We're always incorporating honest cues or honest signals rather. So instead of just reaching under her and touching her, Diana or one of our other keepers is going to let her know. So she doesn't necessarily know we're saying reach is our honest signal for that, but she knows when she hears that sound or that word, there's going to be an arm coming under her. And we've started using the word belly for when we are going to touch her, just to keep it clear that something next is coming and you can choose to stop us or participate. So yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Also, it was absolutely adorable. Diana, the pride on your face as that was being described. I mean, you were literally just staring at Emily with such pride. It was so adorable.
Because I really am so proud.
I can tell.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
I adore the animals and the people that I work with are just like the best around. And it's so incredible too. I'm spread across 2 departments. I do have a very full plate. And so it's incredible to see the people that I work with just absolutely soar and thrive and shine. Yeah. And so, this is definitely a behavior that I'm so proud of. Like how much you've grown as a trainer with this behavior and working with this animal. Yeah. And I think it's so important to highlight lots of ultrasound behaviors are a chain fed behavior. So you just keep the animal eating the whole time, do what you need to while they're distracted, call it a day. And that's useful. It gets the job done. We can always do that whenever we need to. Yeah. But the point behind this behavior of at its core being extremely assent-based, that Josephine has tons of opportunities to say, nope, not right now, and back out whenever she feels like it. It's an advanced concept. And it's not just advanced for her, it's really advanced for us too. Oh, yeah. And I think we've all grown.
It's definitely one of the most intense behaviors I have ever trained. I think before coming to this zoo, I never really trained a behavior from start to finish. So this was a huge challenge, but it was so cool to see the progression. I'm super proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on before we get to our last 2 questions, which is for those listening, they might be a little bit surprised to hear that we're talking about an ambassador collection, but we've only really talked about the training and husbandry. And there's a really specific, really good reason for that here. And I was hoping y'all could go into that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So as zookeepers at Roger Williams Park Zoo, we are actually employees of the City of Providence. So we are City of Providence employees. We are union employees through the City of Providence. So there are very distinct roles that us as zookeepers fill versus our educators that we work with, the docents that we work with, the seasonal staff that we work with. Our roles are very clearly defined in our contract. So our role is much more so we are 100% of the husbandry, we are 100% of the training, and then we're utilizing the behaviors that we train and the relationships that we build with our animals. We're then passing those things off to educators once they're ready to be passed on. So as I train these juvenile skunks that we had, once they were all cleared on their crating behavior, then we could begin passing that off to educators to move them out to their programs. So our role, we still do keeper chats. We still do pop-ups. We do encounters. But as far as going out and doing programming, when we used to work in ambassadors together at Southwick's, we did the programs. We traveled to schools. We would do shows on grounds.
Yeah, we did it all.
Yeah, we're much more behind the scenes, and there are other people that those are kind of being delegated to. So it's a little bit unique in that sense. But we again, we work with just great people on all fronts.
Yeah, definitely.
So it works out really harmoniously.
Nice. That's really cool. And I'm very much, pro-union for keepers.
Yeah.
And really almost anybody.
Yeah.
That is a different podcast. But my actual background, my education background is in the labor unions and labor
awesome.
studies
Really
and all
cool.
that stuff. Yeah. But do you guys like that? Do you find that beneficial being part of union? And do you even find that what I'm hearing is it sounds to me like it just means that it allows you guys to focus on one thing and not be overwhelmed and not have 3 programs so you can't train that day and stuff like that. Is that an accurate read of it or?
Sure. I think it's I think one of the huge benefits is I'm always wowed by all the different roles within the Zoological Society. So that there are people who are exclusively doing on-grounds programming, exclusively doing traveling programming, seasonal staff that when camps uptick and we need more people, there are so many different roles that a bunch of people are filling. I think that's really important. As union members, our benefits are really unbelievable.
Benefits are awesome.
Our benefits are exceptional. We're both still, I've been here for 3 years now, so I would very much still consider myself new to what it's like to be in a union. But we have monthly greater union meetings that a lot of us keepers have now. We'll get together and we'll attend just to hear the general comings and goings of what's going on in our union. It's really interesting, and it's a good feeling as far as thinking about my job security, routine benefits that I know are worked into my contract, that we do have a regular yearly percentage raise. It's not, you're not trying to find the best time to approach your boss and say, oh, how can I talk about maybe getting 50 cents added to my pay rate? Our pay is really equitable across different roles, and we're receiving regular raises. The benefits are truly exceptional. I'm the healthcare provider in my household because my benefits are really wonderful.
Nice.
And it's just been, I think it's something that we're still learning more about every single day.
Yeah.
But having
a lot that goes into a union and a union contract.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting.
Yeah. But having a well-defined role and having, I feel like it's the union is within itself another community, knowing that there are always different avenues of people to talk to, advice to receive. I think there are an enormous number of benefits. And it's interesting. I don't think I'm the most well-educated on our union or unions in general, but I think there are enormous benefits that I reap every day.
Sure. Very, very cool. How about a conservation organization you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'm going to go with SANCCOB, but I always forget what they stand for.
Penguins, dummy.
South African. Can I go first? Because you're probably going to do better than me.
Of course you can go first.
Okay. A recent conservation organization I've come across is VulPro. They are the only nonprofit organization in Africa focused primarily on or solely on vultures. So whether they're injured, poisoned, disabled, they are having rehabilitation programs, releasable programs, stuff like that to keep those numbers from dwindling. There's all sorts of things that could be harming them. Like I said, if they're poisoned, pest control is a huge issue. Power lines, if they're flying into those, electrocution, stuff like that. So, I just recently came across it. And so I love vultures. So I think this is awesome. And there's so many African vulture species. So keeping those numbers high is always a benefit. Plus, they are the environment's little cleaner uppers. So if their numbers go down, environment might be nasty because they're eating all the nasty stuff nobody wants to deal with. So there's that relationship between all of it. So they're not just helping the vultures, they're helping so many other species by helping vultures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I like VulPro a lot. I'm curious, do you know how you came across them?
I do, actually. So our chief zoological officer, Amy, she sent out a thing to the keepers asking for conservation organizations that we can support. And I just went through the list of ambassador animals that we have. And I was hoping to find one that I really felt passionate about, that we can spread that conservation message through our programming. And even though Cathartes is not an African vulture, I still think there's a benefit to having a vulture conservation organization to talk about. Because they do the same things as a vulture, essentially. But yeah, when I came across it, I was like, this is so cool.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. What do you got?
I would like to pitch SANCCOB. SANCCOB, the South African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds.
Nice. I'm always impressed when people know that.
Yeah, I definitely had that memorized ahead of time.
Yep, nobody's looking at their phone at all.
No one's doing any reading. I became really passionate about them when I first got into working with exotics. They do incredible work rescuing and rehabilitating penguins off the coast of South Africa. African penguins in particular are extremely endangered. They do an enormous amount of cleanup when there are oil spills. They take in unbelievable numbers of penguins, rehabilitate them, and release. It's not just penguins, though. It's any sort of coastal bird in Africa. They have incredible facilities of rescue, rehabilitation, and re-release. They do an enormous amount of lobbying, political activism to try to create better policies about how things like oil spills are controlled. And they do an enormous amount of education for local people to hopefully help get the entire community involved in a big variety of coastal birds. So they mostly get, the spotlight tends to be on penguins, very charismatic, very recognizable, but they do an enormous amount of just coastal bird work in general. And I think they're wonderful, and I'd love to visit someday.
That's awesome. Did you know that there is now a SANCCOB as well?
No, I didn't know SANCCOB.
I just recently released an episode, 2 episodes actually, looking at the overall SAFE programs of the AZA. Mm-hmm. And the second one was with one of the leaders from the Safe African Penguin program.
Yeah.
I almost said penguin, right? Anyway, and they were obviously talking about SANCCOB and being partners. And then they were like, and we've helped them launch NAMCOB, which is the Namibian Foundation for the Conservation of Seabirds.
That's
and it's SANCCOB in Namibia. That's what it is.
That's
and they are working on a thing, and it's nancob.org. And it's very exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was really excited to learn about that. Also, I am one of the voices for Penguins International's March of the Penguin Madness.
Obsessed.
And I was doing a video for them that I put out yesterday. And Katie Propp from Penguins International, who is a good friend and has been on the pod a bunch and is very, very in love with SANCCOB. And I were working on the script together before I did it. And I kept spelling SANCCOB wrong. So I get it, but the acronym is challenging. I knew it was a double letter, but I couldn't remember what. And it's a double C.
Yes, the double
C. Conservation for
me.
Coastal. But I was doing, I think, SANCCOBB. And she was nice and didn't say anything, but when I realized that, I was like, I'm dumb. So, anyway.
Just a quick little edit.
Yeah, all good. But so now it is time. It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story. That was a lot of snapping.
That's the
having a little jingle in our heads.
Snapping along to the song.
You were going to go first.
Okay. So my poop story does involve poop. It was at my first facility, Southwick Zoo. I was new to the career of being a zookeeper, and I was excited to meet animals that I may never come across again. So the primate department was wonderful and introduced me to their chimpanzees. And I'm standing there in the holding, and their young chimpanzee, Tansy, she looked at me and looked at a couple other keepers, and she just pooped right there, grabbed it in her hand, and threw it straight through the mesh. It hit a fan that was on, and it did, in fact, splatter me in the face.
Terrible.
I was like, there's no way this just happened. I sprinted over the sink, and I was washing my face. Thank God it didn't get into my eye. But it was absolutely disgusting and warm and like, oh, it was so gross. And I do still love primates, but they are absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
What a welcome to zookeeping.
Oh,
huh?
yeah. I had been a keeper for a few months, and I was like, ooh, this is so exciting, seeing, a great ape, like, right there in front of me. And that was my warm welcome.
Warm welcome.
Warm welcome for sure. Yeah. I'll never forget that feeling. Oh,
Corey, I also promise I won't call this the shit hits the fan edition. Although I also really want to do that. You're welcome.
You come up with these episode titles on the fly. It's really good. That's why you're a professional.
excellent job.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. No, I will literally never forget it. Never forget it.
Nope.
No.
All right. What do you got, Diana?
I was going to say, I consider myself having a very poor sense of smell. So I will sometimes put myself in positions that other people might not be able to handle because in my mind, if I can't smell it, maybe I can handle it a little bit better. So I will sometimes put myself up for a gross job thinking it won't be as bad for me as it would be for someone else. I am going to tell you a story about a snake musking. So the only other snake that I'd ever worked with who had musked was I worked with a hognose snake. She had musked occasionally, and it was something that when she would musk, sometimes it would be during like a strip clean, transport to and from into a new habitat, she would musk. And some of my coworkers would have to evacuate the area, and it wouldn't really affect me too badly. So I would say, okay, I'll do the cleanup. I'm on this. We recently had an annual exam for our anaconda here at the zoo. She is humongous, the largest snake I've ever had hands on. I was really excited to be involved. Largest snakes I had worked with before this were Burmese pythons. I feel confident around snakes. I thought this would be great. I would love to be involved. We were just talking our game plan before we go of who's going to be where, and no one really wanted the tail end. I figured I've restrained large snakes before. I think I could be a really great helper. I'll take the tail. The tail's where she's going to musk from. My role ended up being 2 gloved hands over this snake's cloaca, trying to prevent everybody in the area from being musked to death.
No. It might be the musk to death episode.
Okay. Hognose musk compared to anaconda musk, nothing like I ever could have imagined. This was the first time that I really had to think to myself, like, in through the mouth, out through the nose, in through the mouth, out through the nose. I was keeping an eye on the clock, like, how much longer? Completely like, okay, they've taken blood. Do they need any vaccines? Are the vets wrapping up? I didn't want to tell anyone I need to tap out because I committed to this being my job. I'm on the tail. But I had 2 gloved hands trying to block the cloaca. It was terrible. I smelled so strongly the whole day. Oh, no. My poor partner, me coming home, stinking of musk. And I even changed clothes and I still smelled it on me. And if that's what other people's experiences are like with just having a strong sense of smell day in and day out, I have a lot of admiration because that was truly gross.
Oh, that's one of those smells that just doesn't leave your nose.
Burned into my nostrils.
Yeah, you'll never forget
that.
Oh,
yeah. No, probably the longest shower I've ever taken.
That is amazing. Oh, my gosh. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is really fun.
Yay. All right, so there you have it, folks. What is it about the duo episodes at Roger Williams Park Zoo, right? I mean, we've had some really good ones from there, most recently Kaz and Kate, but honestly, we've done a bunch there, and I just think it speaks so highly to the teamwork at that facility that we keep having these just really awesome duos on together. And it just illustrates how beautifully they work together at that facility, which I just love. I did want to point out that we did not get to the stumbled scientific name because we all forgot because we were having too much fun. And yes, if you were wondering who did the background vocal extra poop story, it was in fact Diana and Emily themselves, and I just love having that now. So you'll be hearing them pop up in future episodes. But I want to say thank you to everyone at Roger Williams Park Zoo, especially to Corey, who is my kind of PR contact there, but more importantly is my friend there. And I love getting to have that relationship. But thank you to everyone for, welcoming me, because that zoo just takes really good care of the podcast and frankly, really good care of me, which is why I was so happy to spend my birthday there. No.
William Nelson.
No.
William Nelson.
Okay. And Zoe would like me to point out that we need to say hi to Willie and Nelson, two of the goats there that made my birthday very special.
For me.
For her. Okay. So, I guess now that we've said, given them the shout out, we should also give a shout out to the Red Panda level patrons, who Zoe would totally rename goat level patrons if she could, but she can't. And those are Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Melissa Reed, Kevin Williams, and of course, John Lewis, who is also here for the stickers. Jerk. No, just kidding. Did I just call a patron a jerk? No, I love you. Anyway, so thank you all for being here. We'll be back on Friday for the latest episode of Zoo News. But before then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.